congratulations again.
Yeah, we'll be. Well done. Very proud of you. Thank you, Dr. Castaldo. I believe you wanted to recognize, we mentioned, okay, in a second. Public
I have more for later.
We have more exciting news. Public participation on action items only. This period is the first of 2 public participation segments. Total of 30 minutes with 3 minutes per speaker. Please come to the microphone and introduce yourself and your affiliation with Suffern Central. Please address all comments to the board president and refrain from discussing individual personnel or students. Thank you. Seeing there are none, we will close this segment and move on to our action items. Action items listed are 2.01 up to 2.25. There will be a modification to 2.01, deleting an appointment that is mentioned in another item. So we will make that update online to the agenda. It was separated as a separate item. So with that alteration, 2.01, do any board members wish to pull any items? Mr. Curran, 2.20. That's it. Mr. Mackenzie? Mr. Karas? Mr. Hero? Mr. Donnelly?
2.22, please.
Mr. Donnelly? Any others? We're good to go? Yes, give me a thumbs up. Okay, so I would like to entertain a motion for a consent agenda on all items, starting with 2.01 down to 2.25, with the exception of 2.22 and 2.20. Motion?
Moved.
Moved by Mr. Shapiro. Second? Mr. Mackenzie. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those against? Any abstains? The items have been moved. Moving on to item pulled by Mr. Curran, that will be 2.20. Motion? Mr. Curran, second. Mr. Donnelly? Mr. Shapiro, sorry. Discussion.
Yeah, so would this be a question for either Dr. Castaldo or Ms. Sylvia? I just wanted to understand a little more about the subline.
So basically, in 2016, I believe, we established an employee retirement reserve. If you remember, a few years ago, the TRS rate, ERS rate were like through the roof. We actually had the ability over that 2%. Oh, we had that ability to raise taxes more than the regular 2% because of the increase in TRS and ERS. So a few years ago, we established an employees retirement reserve. And just recently, the state gave us the ability to offer a teacher's retirement reserve. And of course, teacher's retirement is a much bigger number for us than employees retirement. So it's good to put some money in there if we have money. I'm not saying we're going to do it, but just to establish the reserve so that we have the money to put the extra funds in there, so that if we have a bump up, we'll be able to handle that without impacting the taxpayers.
Okay, so it's really the creation of a fund, and this is what we're going to talk about. It's the creation of a fund for the teachers.
That's right. Instead of just the employee retirement, now they're allowing the teachers.
But at this point in time, there is no.
Can't hear you.
Sorry, try number one.
All right.
Is it working? Yes, it's working.
All right, now we're
It's working.
Okay, got it now. All right. So
again, just to clarify, this is the establishment of a teacher's retirement fund, separate from the existing fund that we have for the
Employees retirement,
Employees
actually, it's
retirement.
something a little different, it's a sub-fund, so it's part of the same, fund.
Okay.
But it's just a little separate because of DRS versus ERS.
Right.
So now we're able to do more money. if we
So
need to.
even though we're creating it tonight, there is no expectation right now that we're actually funding.
No.
We're
I
just
mean,
creating the fund
Right.
in the event that we have a surplus somewhere down the line,
Right.
we can put money in.
yeah, Absolutely.
Okay. Okay.
There's no money attached. Okay.
Thank you.
I also have a question, essentially. So if there are funds in the future and the sub-fund, other employees are unable to use them, correct?
I'm sorry.
They will be specifically for teachers and other employees are unable to use them.
So it's not really employees, we're using it to pay our teacher's retirement bill. So it's used, that part will be used for teacher's retirement, the other part will be used for employee retirement. You can move that money out.
That's my question.
Yes.
Can you move from one to two?
Yeah, well, in August, we do a whole resolution, if you remember, to move money from all the different reserves.
Okay, so they'll be exchangeable.
I mean, we could always use it for our expense. It's not like, oh, you have to use it a certain year or certain time, so we can use it to pay part of our expense.
Great, thank you. Any further questions? Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those against? Any abstains? Move. Item 2.22. Motion. Mr. Shaviro, second.
Second.
Mr. Curran. Discussion.
I look at this resolution and I have an issue with the fact that.
I didn't hear you.
I have an issue with the. Good?
Yeah.
It's the first time in my life I've been told that you can't hear me. I just have an issue with the resolution. We have administrators here that have been here for some time and everything, and they had to do the 15 years for health insurance benefits. And I just have an issue with negotiating at this point in time. I just don't think it's fair to our employees that have been here. With that, I'm not going to support the resolution. Thank you.
Any additional discussion? Okay, we'll call the question. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All those against?
Thank you.
Any abstains? Motion has passed. Thank you. Moving on to an information item, we'll invite our auditors to come out. All board members have received the package. That's what we're from. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. Thanks for having Nugent House to prepare the internal audit work for the district over the past year. You have two reports tonight to go over. And I guess I'll ask the board how detailed, because I don't know how long you want me to spend. So in other words, do you want me to go through it item by item, particularly on the one that's for extra classroom activities? Or do you want to just kind of get a real quick overview and you can ask questions?
A general overview.
Okay, I'll try to make it brief then.
Thank you.
And then please ask questions. It's
Yeah.
better if you ask questions and then I'll be happy to answer them.
Thank you.
Okay.
You're gonna regret that.
Nice big glasses. I'm ready. Okay, so the first report was issued December 12th of 2018 and it's on the extra class activity funds. And just to fill you in other words, every year the district is required to have what's called an annual risk assessment update and then also pick an area to do an internal audit of. So the internal audit area for last year that was chosen was extra classroom activities. So we'll go over that quickly now. So basically, we have a rating system. You can see on page 1, we rate it as either satisfactory, acceptable, or unsatisfactory. And we give it unsatisfactory because there was certain internal controls that could definitely be strengthened and certain policies and procedures that necessarily the district has that weren't really being followed. So, real quickly, if you go to page 2 and then kind of goes on, page 3, we have about 6 or 7 pages here. It's just a question of, like, for instance, on number 1, the high school extra classroom treasurer was preparing bank reconciliations, but wasn't necessarily doing it timely. We found sometimes they were done 4 months after the fact. Okay, on number 2, we found that some reconciliations by the middle school extra classroom treasurer weren't being completed at all. So that's definitely, we're recommending reconciliations be prepared and reviewed on a monthly basis. Just good internal controls. We're on page 3 real quick. Outstanding checks. There were really some old reconciling items, and so we're recommending if they're over 6 months old, they should be voided and adjusted accordingly. Maybe new checks issued if that's the case, but that should be dealt with as opposed to just not dealing with it. Okay. Also, sales tax is an issue. Again, this is an issue with every district that we deal with. Extra classroom is different than the funds of the district because these are funds of the children, and the district can buy items tax-free. But with the children's funds for the extra classroom clubs, they have to pay sales tax unless they're going to be buying for resale. So they act more as a for-profit business in this case, and we were finding that there were some purchases that we saw where they didn't pay sales tax, so unless they're giving a resale certificate, they should be paying sales tax on all purchases. And we didn't find any instances, though I don't think, where sales tax was actually collected on any sales. And so that's something that should be looked at. Some sales, they should be collecting sales tax and remitting it properly to New York State.
Can I please interrupt?
Yeah.
What types of sales are we talking about?
Well,
What's an example?
I don't remember your clubs offhand, but let's say you have a bookstore. Sales in a bookstore are taxable. So if they're selling pencils, papers, whatever, backpacks in the bookstore, subject to sales tax. Now you can just say this T-shirt's $10 and include sales tax and back sales tax out. You don't have to add sales tax to it, but theoretically there's a sales tax function. But then on those purchases, they shouldn't have paid sales tax. So where the district on its purchases doesn't pay any sales tax. That's just nature of being a municipality. You don't pay sales tax. But the extra classroom is different.
So these clubs are not considered nonprofit?
Right, they're considered the children's funds, and they're really no different rules than the district.
So they're nonprofit, but the merchandise they sell has to have sales tax on it.
Right.
That is then in turn.
Right, then then you remit it to New York State on a quarterly basis.
Thank you. I believe that's come up in the past too.
Okay. Okay. Also, I'm on the bottom of page 3. Student representatives. The middle school extra classroom treasurer was not being provided with a detailed list of appointed advisors and student officers. It's my understanding that every year each club, whether it's middle school, high school, whatever, should be submitting a charter to the central treasurer or to the Board of Ed, and the charter should include student officers, should include whoever the club advisor is, and so that's just kind of a requirement from state ed, but it's also just good internal controls because you need to have the officers to comply with the requirements of having extra classroom funds, but it's good controls because if you don't know who the officers are, then you don't really know who should be signing for checks and who should be making deposits. So, okay. Okay, again, the purpose I'm on page 4 under student records. The purpose of the extra classroom funds is really to help educate the students. They're supposed to get sort of business acumen from participating in the extra classroom funds, and get basic bookkeeping knowledge, understand bank reconciliations, and just care of money so that making deposits timely and getting proper authorization for disbursements. And if the students aren't participating, then, and this happens in every district. We have this problem in every district, but if the students aren't participating, the reality is then the purpose of the clubs really aren't being, carried out in accordance with the regulations and how they're supposed to be. So under here we have student records. So some student officers are not keeping track of their own books. So the idea is every club should be keeping track of their own deposits and disbursements and reconciling that with the, either the high school treasurer's extra classroom treasurer or the middle school extra classroom treasurer, who would also reconcile with the central treasurer. Okay. Again, a little bit more on the sales tax. They weren't collecting sales tax. We talked about, well, new clubs. In this case, we found the new clubs were not being approved by the board. Really, when they ever, if a new club, I don't know how often you get new clubs, but new clubs should come to the Board of Ed for approval. You should be aware of what clubs, not that you're going to deny a club, but you should be aware of, because there may be some activity you're saying that's just not really appropriate, and so you should be
To avoid
aware.
actual
Yeah,
action.
yeah.
Thank you.
Just one thing though, you do approve total clubs every year. You're getting new ones, and I don't really know how many there are, but you do approve the clubs once a year.
Right, and every year there's one or two new ones. Are they usually on the list approved?
Yeah, this is why we had this audit, to find out what we were doing wrong.
Right.
So we will go, so this year I haven't heard anything. I did let them know about this, so.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm on the top of page 5 under inactive clubs. Again, we see this at many schools. So during our review of the activity of extraclassroom funds, we saw that some clubs had little or no activity, so they're not necessarily basically inactive. Clubs can have no activity and still be carried forward. That does happen, but generally speaking, when there's no activity, you should have certain. I think the district probably has a policy on what happens, and we found certain clubs were just inactive and the balances were sitting there, but you should have follow district policies. The money should go to maybe the GO fund or wherever, or maybe the senior class. Different districts do different things, so it's just something to follow up with. Again, try not to go too detailed, but as I'm going through, we're in the middle of page 5 under deposits. Several deposits were not made timely, so it's just good cash control to make sure that until you deposit, the funds are put somewhere safe. In a safe, maybe at the principal's office, wherever, but also, it should be deposited timely within a few days. Understandably, it may not happen all the time, but deposits shouldn't sit around, especially, in an unlocked area for too long. I don't remember, I'm not saying that these were not in a safe area, but they definitely weren't made timely. We found that there was a time delay. What else? Standard forms. The middle school and the high school don't use the same forms for cash disbursements. We just recommended for consistency and comparability, the same forms be used throughout the district. It just would make more sense. Okay, also we found in the middle of page 6, this is really the last item, we found that there were certain, there was an extra classroom activity that had a shortfall, and I guess the general fund made up for the shortfall for the club, which maybe had to be done, but that's just not appropriate. The funds of the extra classroom, as I did before, are the students' funds. The district's funds are separate. That's why the students are separate with extra classroom activities. So, if there's a disbursement that has to be made, that's why the clubs have to be involved to know if they have the balances to cover the expenditures coming up, or they need to do fundraising. And I'm guessing in this instance, I don't remember now what it was.
This is the robotics club.
Okay.
I think that last year we gave them some money to participate into
National company.
yes, and we're not allowed to use it. So.
Okay, I went through it, I think, pretty quickly. Maybe you didn't think so, but do you have any questions on extra classroom?
So can you advise in that situation if, let's say, a club has qualified for a national competition, what is the best way for the district to support? Not financially.
Yeah, I'm not saying you did the wrong thing because, you kind of probably had to do it given the situation, but you don't want that to happen. It's just not, it's not appropriate, if it's a club activity. If it's actually going to be a district activity that's approved by the Board of Ed, then the district can obviously fund that for the general fund.
So they cannot be a club, but they could be a team, correct? The
Yeah.
definition of team.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Sure. Okay. If there's no other questions on extra classroom,
I have
sure.
a question. It says here, lack of written procedures under number 16 for extra classroom funds.
oh, you're on the next report, I think.
Oh, am I?
Yeah, I think you're on the next report. This is fine, because I'm ready to go there. Okay, yeah, you can ask a question, sure.
Well, I was just wondering, are they supposed to have like bylaws or something like that for each club?
Yeah, in other words, every club, as I said before, and this isn't necessarily bylaws, but every club should have a charter that says these are student officers, this is the teacher advisor. And really, the state provides a pamphlet on extra classroom activities. And really, that kind of is the how-to and like what you should follow. And that's kind of what should be adopted formally by all the clubs, really. So that's kind of the written procedures. So in other words, if I'm the senior class president, and I should know, these are the procedures that we follow for cash receipts, these are the procedures we follow for cash disbursements, and it would just be good internal controls if they're written, so that every club can know what to follow. So, yeah.
So we have sent, well, not the current person at the middle school, because this is his first year, but we have sent them to, there's training that gets done by the state. We've sent them to extra classroom training. They've been provided the pamphlet, and we actually do have some written rules that we wrote a few years ago trying to make middle school and high school maybe basically doing the same thing and operating the same way.
So sending the club advisors, is that what you're talking about?
No,
The
sending the central treasurer, so
The treasurers of every club.
just of the central treasurer, so, sorry, Jacoby and AJ Beyond.
Okay.
So AJ has not gone, this is his first year, but Craig has, and we couldn't find a good date for him to go this year.
And is it their responsibility to train the other treasurers of the individual clubs, or how does that?
Usually, yes, their fault. We're not.
That's a huge undertaking.
Well, I think they provide oversight. I think
Yeah,
it's
they provide,
probably.
they're not gonna- but they know what has to be done, and we do have charts. We went through this a few years ago, trying to change things, and we've made great strides. We probably, and I guess Mark, you can talk to this, but we actually have our claims auditor check every single check that goes out. That's probably more on
Yeah,
that
yeah.
side than most districts do. So, but it's difficult sometimes because you are dealing with students, you don't wanna close a club because students can't be involved, we don't wanna hurt the kids in that respect. And it's a lot of work for these teachers that are, it's a little part-time thing for them to, and they work very
Maybe I'm
hard.
thinking if we can hold like a once training at the beginning of the year that is optional.
The high school does do that, I've gone to that with them and answered questions. I didn't do it this year, we have done that before. The next thing I really wanna do, and I actually sent them an email, is to meet with them and actually maybe even have more come down, to meet with them, and then we can go through this so that they understand the importance of some of these things.
Training opportunities on things.
Yes.
So, thank you.
Yeah, I just, not to say that, make light of the situation, but extra classroom is sort of a thorn in every district side. We have issues. It's rare that we go into a district. I just am trying to say, I don't think that you guys are lacking. Every other district does it perfect. Believe me, most districts are not much different. We have these similar problems in every district we go to. So it's rare that you go to a district and the extra classroom is running real
So we
smoothly.
had this audited a couple of years ago. Did we make any improvements? Did we look any better than the previous time?
Well, I didn't do it a couple of years ago. Yeah, somebody else
So
did.
there was no
Yeah,
comparison?
so I don't. Yeah, I don't know.
Just want to get it.
Well, that's part of the reason we started doing the claims audit, because we had problems with our disbursements, we didn't have the correct signatures, they didn't get the correct receipts, so that, it's much easier to do the disbursements, the cash receipt side, as I'm sure you'll attest to, is very difficult, because they would have to have a number of tickets, or, it's very, very difficult to control that. We should, we've improved a lot of it, but it's difficult to control, where I know the cash disbursements is very easy to control now. And they're not happy, so that's good, that means the auditors do a good job.
Thank you.
Okay, so moving on to, this is now the current year. So this is your risk assessment update. As I mentioned earlier, it's a requirement by the state that you have this. We don't go crazy. We spend a day at the district, myself and a staff member. We spent a day. We just kind of review the internal controls of the district. And what we're doing is what's called a risk assessment update. So we're doing a risk assessment. And in accounting lingo, we're kind of looking at your inherent risk and your control risk, and we're trying to determine what the total risk is by area. And basically, there's 17 areas. These were the areas that were more or less spelled out by the state when this first got put in effect, years ago. So that's why we didn't really come up with these areas. This is what the state ed more or less came up with to say we should be following. So what you can see is we're listing out on here. I'm on page 4 and 5. We have a previous year and a current year, and for the most part, they stayed the same. And the reason why they stay the same is because I'll look at, for argument's sake, number 9 and 10, your purchasing accounts payable. that's just inherently a high-risk area. So therefore, it's going to be high-risk every area. You can have really good controls, but it's still going to be a high-risk, at best a moderate-risk area, because there's, those areas are subject to misappropriation, and not just your particular district, any district. So that's not going to generally change too much, but that doesn't mean you're having any problems with high risk. You're saying that it is, in lack of following controls, it's easily, money could be misappropriated. So that's why certain areas, extra classroom is a high-risk area, payroll is a high-risk area. Some of those areas, regardless of your controls, are going to still be high risk.
Just a quick question.
Yeah.
Page 4.
Yes.
Number 2, strategic planning, budget development, and administration. That is the only category out of the 17 that had a change in the risk assessment from year to year and went from low to moderate. So what drove that change?
Really, the only reason why it was just a gut reaction, and why I say it that way, is because, in other words, number 1 and number 2 kind of go together, and it starts with tone at the top, and in other words, so, from the board, superintendent, down to the business office, and I don't know what was exactly going on. I didn't meet Dr. Castaldo, did I get your name right? I'm sorry. But I know there was some issue with the superintendent not being here, or the old superintendent was, so I just felt there was a change going on with management, and so that's the only reason why really it was a gut feeling just to put to moderate. And because it kind of goes with starting at the top and then down, and there was some changes going on, so it doesn't mean there's really any problems, so, but that's where it came from. So you can see, as you look down the list, really starting on number 9, so we ordered that one in 2017, 9 and 10 together, purchasing accounts payable generally get audited together, because they go hand in hand. They were ordered in 17. Payroll was ordered in 2016, and as we just went through extra classroom, that was 2018. So what the between board and management, what you need to do is you need to decide one of these areas going forward to pick for your risk assessment, or you can pick something totally different. Like, I'll give you an example. One of my clients, one of my school districts, is auditing the facilities usage. Not that they feel there's a major problem there, but it's something that was never looked at. They just wanted to see, was it being rented properly to the outside people and to PTAs and so forth, and was everything being recorded properly and contracts being signed. I'm just saying that you don't have to pick, I'm just giving you that as an example. You don't have to pick one of these 17 items if you don't want to. But, we on page 5, the bottom of page 5, we do kind of tell you real quickly, there were 6 high areas, there were 6 moderate areas, 5 low. The high areas are listed there, your cash receipts, your purchasing, accounts payable, again, they usually go hand in hand. Payroll, fixed assets are high because they're walkable, and that's kind of one of the main reasons why that's a high area. And there's usually, most districts have difficulty really tracking their fixed assets, even though I'm sure you do tag things, and every district tags them, but still there's always some issues there in most districts. Extra classroom we just talked about. And then on page 6, these are just so you know, I went through some of the comptroller reports over the last year, and the comptroller's reports generally, these 5 categories seem to be consistently being reviewed by the comptroller. So the first one being fiscal management and reserves, purchasing, payroll, extra classroom activities, and cafeteria procedures. They were typically areas, again, you don't have to pick any of these areas, but these are just areas I'm telling you that what the comptroller had been looking at over the last year in a lot of districts I noticed. So.
In our district? No.
No, I'm saying this is statewide.
In general?
Yeah, this is the statewide things that they were looking at. A lot of fiscal management, a lot of purchasing, but all those 5 categories I saw quite a few of. So I don't know how you're going forward, but yeah, that's something that the board and management have to decide.
Usually, I know it was not too long ago that the board decided on what area to focus on for the analysis, the annual analysis. When do you need that by?
Sooner than later. Sooner than later.
Not tonight,
Yeah, no, it doesn't have to be tonight, but sooner.
but it has to be before the end of June, hopefully.
It should be. I mean, because the state really wants the audit to be done by the end of June, and we have a tentative date to come back actually
What
in
is that?
June
What's your date?
to make it happen. But again,
You have
you got to do what you can only do what you
have a
can do.
date or you don't have it?
We have a tentative date. Yeah, like middle of June roughly was the tentative
Mid-June.
date we had.
So would it be good before the board meeting? Because I think it's 2 weeks.
Before June 18, you
At least we
prefer?
would have an idea that you guys can.
Do you want to just decide tonight, everyone? Do you want to give it some thought? What do you feel comfortable with?
Why don't we give us some thought, and we'll each give you two areas. to
Okay,
look at.
we could tally it. You're good with that? Yes? Okay, so we'll get it for you before.
Okay, great.
Okay, we'll work on that.
Any questions before
So
I
you
go?
don't have to have the board action before we do. You don't have to have a public vote.
Well, yeah, you just need to have a consensus.
You don't want to change it when you already started.
No, that we can do. No.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay,
Perfect.
no other
Questions?
questions? Well, thank you, and
Thank you very
I'll
much.
see you soon, I guess. Thanks.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Board member comments. Who wants to start? Mr. Shapiro,
Thank you.
thanks for raising your hand.
Baseball and
Oh my
Valentine
God, awesome.
pretzels. The girls lacrosse team is playing this Friday, but they're probably about 200 to 300 miles away, maybe even more. It could be in Canada, but whatever. But they're definitely in upstate New York, not like people in New York City think that we're in upstate New York. Okay, so let's get that. Oh, Sweeney Court, so that's.
As far as I know, it's City Portland, and I do think there's
Oh.
people watching on a webcam, because that's part of my remarks.
Oh, okay, so maybe I should, okay, so let me just shift very quickly to the boys' baseball team that are also section champs, just like the girls' lacrosse team. The movie Hoosiers comes into mind. I don't know how many of you saw the movie Hoosiers?
Are we dating
Okay, maybe I'll
ourselves?
speak to the wall. Have you seen it? No. Okay, anyway, in Hoosiers, when they were going through the whole state playing games and the state title, and here they are, a school of about 60 kids, of about 30 boys, and they had a state title, and it's a true story, which is very interesting. Not the way it was portrayed, but it's a true story. But they had a caravan for each of those games. The people from that little town of Hickory went to the different places and followed. And I have an interest in the boys' baseball team. So I'm definitely going, and I just thought it would be cool if Suffering could kind of get like a lot of people. We could meet at the high school and maybe follow the boys' team on Saturday, because they will be playing Saturday. The problem is we don't know where. If the team from Kingston win, then we'll be playing in Kingston. If the team from Binghamton wins, we're playing in Binghamton. The game in Kingston is probably going to be maybe 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock. The game in Binghamton might not be until 4 or 5. So I don't want to be the social person in your family, but anyway, maybe there might be a caravan. Maybe some of the parents of the baseball players are going to start doing it, but if you're interested, I guess maybe there'll be something on social media, and we can go up there and support the team, because they really had to go through a lot to get to the sectional title, and now they're in the state championship. You know, the road to the state championship. So I'm done.
Karen, Mr. Donnelly?
Yeah, I would like to, first of all, thank the district for the positive vote for the budget. We can't do it without you. But I'd also like to recognize Teresa. Teresa worked endlessly here, putting this budget together by herself, weekends, and I think that goes unnoticed. And Teresa, I know we couldn't have got it done without you. You know, you're a champion, and I just.
Thank you, Mr. Donnelly. Thank you, Ms. Isolde, and your business office team. Okay. comments are just, yes, Mr. McKenzie.
Yeah, I just wanted to say congratulations to the retirees this evening, and also a special thank you to the Suffern High School Orchestra, who played very beautifully out there this evening, for those of you who were able to enjoy it. That's
And to wrap up, I'm only repeating what you all said. The sentiment is congratulations to the retirees who have served Suffern Central in an amazing way, as we heard tonight, and brought tears to all our eyes, I think. They continue to be part of our district body. So all the best wishes to all of them. Very proud of our athletic teams. Best of luck to the girls lacrosse, boys baseball, and all other teams that are competing. Very impressed with our Young Reflections honoree tonight. She was adorable, as everyone saw. She's the national winner. That is a huge deal. So we're very proud, and more reason to boast and brag about the great things happening here. Thank you for the teachers who supported her creativity to this point. And we look forward to more recognitions in the remainder part of the year, and thank you all for being here. Next are our second portion of public participation on non-agenda items. Seeing there are none, we will proceed to acting superintendent closing comments. Dr. Costello.
Well, I always prepare my list, and I have 6 things on my list, because we already spoke about Ruby. So I'm looking at my list, and okay, I've got girls lacrosse, check, that was already done. Boys baseball, that was already done as well. Retirees, that's been done. What do I have on my list that hasn't been mentioned? Well, a couple of interesting things. I had the orchestra, already mentioned. 2 things that maybe weren't mentioned that are just as interesting is the crew team. The crew team won their 10th Rockland Westchester Cup, which is really exciting for them. They've had some state final wins as well, so we're very excited about the crew team. Did I cut out? And then one other thing that I thought was really interesting, our marching band this past Memorial Day marched in the Hillburn Memorial Day Parade. So I thought that was just a great link to our past and for our students of the future to see and remember on Memorial Day. So that was another thing that I wanted to mention. And that's my 6 things. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Castaldo. At this point, need a motion to adjourn. Mr. McKenzie, second.
Second.
Mr. Karen's, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those against, any abstains, meeting adjourned. If we can just huddle for a few seconds, board members, to finish our discussion.